Hello and welcome to another edition of Just Another Football Podcast with my co-host Harry.
How you doing, Bob?
And our guest and our first guest, which is Kirsch, a Liverpool fan.
Hello.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting week of football.
One way of putting it.
Yeah, yes, great point. Bolton lost. I feel like I have to point that out because people might not have seen it. But
They'd have assumed it.
But the most interesting game of the weekend was clearly the Man City v Liverpool game. Kirsch, what were your thoughts on the game?
Going into the game, I was apprehensive. I'll be honest. Like, obviously, it's well documented how threadbare we are at centre back. So, not knowing who was going to step into that line, whether it was going to be Nat Phillips, who played a very good game against West Ham last week, and I was doubting it was going to be Reece Williams, obviously because of his age. I didn't know Matip was going to be fit or not, so kind of holding your breath with regard to that. To be honest, I'll be obviously probably get asked the question later, so I'll preempt it. I would have taken a draw at the start of it because of those reasons, especially when you're losing something like Van Dijk.
What did you make of the team when you saw it, Kirsch? Because obviously I think a lot of people were probably surprised that he went with Jota and Firmino. I think it was sort of the conception that would be one or the other, and he went with both of them and went with the sort of 4-4-2/4-2-4. So what did you make of that?
I'll probably say pleasantly surprised. He's trying to be on the front foot. Maybe go to a similar kind of style as how we were playing 3 seasons ago. I think it would be now, when we're a bit more on the front foot than on the defensive side. So maybe a bit of smash and grab. And then obviously once we it started that way, and then it kind of settled down probably after about the 25th, 30th minute, and it kind of got a bit scrappy. And then City came in, got the equaliser, and then it was a bit of a midfield battle, if not more in our territory. So
yeah, it helped a lot. De Bruyne missing that penalty, obviously, but it felt fair, if you know what I mean. He missed the penalty because it didn't feel like. The issue is with VAR, and I don't really like talking about VAR because it's such a divisive issue. And I think people have already made their mind up anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just they slow it down. If they play it in full speed, I don't think it's giving us a penalty.
I made that observation myself when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it in the Leicester Wolves game as well, and the pundits on the commentary made that observation that obviously when you slow it down, it's always going to look worse and incriminate the player probably more than it should do, because if you're slowing it down, it looks like they've got all the time in the world to move the hand out of the way, and his hand's in a natural position. It's not. I don't think it's the main thing to take away from the game, but it's certainly something to look at and go, I don't like the way the new handball rule is being interpreted. I don't like the way we're going with it. I just think that, look at the number of penalties that are being given at the moment, and they're not all for handball, but it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't seem right. I've not seen one given for or against my team, so I've not gotten particularly worked up about it just yet. But even seeing some of the ridiculous ones I've seen given over the past few weeks, it sits wrongly with me personally.
And I just think the issue is they've brought VAR in, but they kept keeping the same rules. So there's issues there. There's issue with offside, of course, with that. But then the issue is I think what they need to do is change the rule, because VAR is here to stay. If you ask any Championship fan, they will say, if you watch football without VAR and an incident goes against you, you'll be kicking yourself that you don't have it.
100%.
So I think they need to update the rules, and I think they've tried to do that with the handball rule, and it hasn't worked clearly. I would look back to the Crystal Palace v Everton game where Digne's headed it against, I think it was one of
Joel Ward.
Yeah. And his hand's in, but because it's hit his hand and it's the thing that stopped it.
Yeah.
We're still giving it a penalty.
It's a slightly worse version of the rule that we've had, obviously, for the last 2 seasons, where if the ball hits your hand at all in the build-up to a goal, deliberate or not, the goal will always be disallowed. And that's kind of one thing where you might go, well, it's not deliberate, but it's hit your hand, and you probably shouldn't score a goal as a result of the ball hitting your hand, because it's not supposed to happen. But it's one thing that, and it's another thing actually starting to give penalties for it as well.
If I was the FA, what I would do is I would have 5 people, so an odd number, and then give them a certain amount of time, 10, 15 seconds, to look at it and go, do you think that's a penalty, yes or no? Because I think the issue is one.
I think they're getting confused. I don't know if you saw actually on the Sky Sports punditry of the Leicester Wolves game, they showed something at half time where the VAR official was basically having to explain himself to Neil Swarbrick, who'd like gone in there, and they were having like an in-depth discussion. Obviously, we didn't know what they were saying, but the guy was sort of like putting his arm out as if to show that the arm of the player who handled it was in an unnatural position, and it just sort of seems like there's a lot of confusion internally with regards to the interpretation of the handball rule. I don't think everyone's necessarily clear on it, and you're going to see inconsistencies with it, I think.
Liverpool Man City game, I think.
Yeah.
This has been said a lot. People will say we would have taken a draw after the start of the game, but who do you think would feel worse off out of Man City and Liverpool?
It's an awkward one, isn't it? Because you'd think when you look at the table at the start of the match, Liverpool would feel, obviously, if you just look at where they're positioned, etc., you'd think Liverpool fans would feel a bit embittered because we dropped 2 points, we weren't near the top, we've missed our chance to go back on top again. Whereas City have got a bit of a point to prove that obviously they played late, they started the season later, they're almost always trying to get that traction, so they'll feel a bit embittered that they've not had that chance to get there. I think it's a fair argument for both, to be fair.
Yeah, and as good as Liverpool have been the last 2 seasons, I know it's sort of exceptional circumstances maybe last year, but they have lost the last 2 games there. So it's never a bad point going away to probably your biggest rivals. You'd think City are going to be the nearest challengers if it is indeed that Liverpool heading the sort of front of it. So, I mean, I agree. If I were a Liverpool fan, I'd have taken a draw. I thought it would be a draw, and I think it's probably a fair reflection of where the teams are at the moment. I think City are sort of slightly struggling going forwards. They haven't quite got the incisiveness and sort of clinical edge to their play that they've had in the sort of last couple of seasons gone by. And obviously,
I think Jesus coming back will help that a lot.
It will, but still they only managed 1 goal. I know it's against Liverpool, but that they're not free score. I think there was a statistic at this point in the season last year. I think before the game at the weekend, they'd scored 24 goals, and they'd only scored 9 going into the game against Liverpool. So there's definitely, I'm not going to say a creativity issue, because we'll get onto my team where there definitely is, and with dearth of creative options, but they're just, I think they're struggling a little bit. It might be just due to some of the opposition they've played, but they're not quite as free scoring as they usually are. And I think obviously Liverpool, you've got the fact that Van Dijk's missing, and that's always, I wondered when he went out the team whether they might adopt sort of a change of formation, change of system, because I think he's so adept to dealing with space. Like, you can leave him back and push players forwards because that he's so good at defending one-on-one. He's a really good player in the duels, really good in the air, really physical, quick. He can do it all. And when you don't have a player like that, I'm not going to suggest that, the likes of Matip and Gomez and Fabinho, that they're half the player he is, but it sort of warrants the question, do you stick an extra man in there to sort of, make up for not having let's have it right, probably the best centre back in the world. But he went with it, Klopp. He was aggressive with the way he approached the game, I thought.
Yeah, I think Fabinho was the plan was to play Fabinho there when Van Dijk was out, but is he still injured?
Fabinho, yeah, I think, I'm not too sure for how long. Yeah.
If you look at it as going into the season, they had Matip, Gomez, Fabinho, and Van Dijk. There's 4 centre backs. Van Dijk's gone, and Fabinho's gone. So all of a sudden it changes the complex. And I know people will talk about should they have sold Lovren or not. I honestly think they should have.
Do you think you should have brought someone in the summer, Kirsch? I mean, obviously you're not expecting an injury to Van Dijk, but would you have liked to see that position bolstered a little bit, just to give you a bit more sort of wiggle room back there, for want of a better word?
Oh, but it's hindsight's 2020. To say that I'll be honest with you, lads, that if we were to say that our next options were Reece Williams and Nat Phillips, I wouldn't have been too comfortable with that because one, I've not seen them play a high standard of football. I was quite happy with how Phillips played in the FA Cup last year, but one game and he played kind of Bundesliga 2 last year with Stuttgart as well. I would prefer to have another centre back in there. I don't know whether it be a veteran in there, just have another head that you can put in there.
Yeah.
Whether it be a youngster, so you can.
It's a difficult pitch, I think.
It's his fourth choice as well.
That's the thing. It's a difficult pitch to any player to say, right, you're going to come in. You've got Virgil van Dijk who's going to play every week, and then you've got Gomez and Matip who are ahead of you in the pecking order. And then if they don't play, it's possibly Fabinho. So you're basically coming in to be fourth choice. And I think you're right. Like the only person you could probably sell it to is a veteran, someone probably towards the end of their career.
I think you could have done what you did with Jota in a way that Salah's 29 now, same age as Van Dijk. I think you could have found a 24-year-old centre back that was eager and keen. I think someone like Milan Skriniar, who was linked with a move to Tottenham.
Yeah, but I mean, he would have cost like 60 million. I mean,
so Skriniar was linked with a move to Tottenham for 45 million, and apparently Tottenham didn't have the cash at the time to make the deal done.
Yeah, but I mean, Liverpool have done what they did last season in many ways with the goalkeeper situation. They've just valued other positions. Like they've strengthened in centre midfield and bolstering their front three. And I think in a COVID-impacted market, you can't sign players in every position. Like it's just not possible. So, I mean, unless you're Chelsea and you've got your owner bankrolling you have to sort of pick and choose. And I think for them, it was sort of, do we get someone in to provide competition to the front three? And do we want to get someone in midfield with a bit more craft and quality, which is what they've done? And unfortunately, that does come at the expense of getting another centre half in. But, you've got to remember at the time, they're not expecting Van Dijk to go down with a long-term injury and miss the entire season by the looks of it. So it's a difficult one, I think. But
they are now being linked with Skriniar, so I'd imagine you'll see that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was sort of quickly. Do you think they'll bring anyone in January, Kirsch? Do you think they'll look to do it?
I don't know. I would probably side on no, if I'm being honest.
If you were Liverpool, what would you do?
If I wasn't a Liverpool fan,
I mean, if you're like an owner and you make the decision.
Bob likes to put himself in the shoes of the director of football. So
I don't know really, because I know the way that Henry and Bernard speak to Klopp. They know how much confidence he has in the players that he has. Sometimes it's unfounded in some regards. I probably would go for a player of kind of a reasonable value. Maybe the lad who's at Schalke, is it Kazan? Something along those lines. So you're not spending stupid money like Koulibaly and Skriniar. If hypothetically, if you went for him, you're then putting Gomez's nose out of place because he's probably going to expect to play with Van Dijk when he was to come back. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
With somebody in that kind of vein, or again, as I said before, a veteran. Like I think at the time, obviously pre Van Dijk injury, Thiago Silva that hadn't moved, and a lot of people were saying, well, why not? Get him for a year.
Wouldn't have been a bad one.
Do you know what I mean? So at least it's an aged head there that can give a bit of advice to somebody who's a little bit younger. Like I always raise the point with Liverpool fans, a lot of people don't actually realise that Nat Phillips is older than Joe Gomez, only by a few years.
Yeah.
But like the amount of games that both had at that level, obviously, kind of pales in comparison on the side of Gomez.
I think that is one of Gomez's strengths, is how much game time he's had it for his age in that position.
Definitely, 100%. I wanted to ask you, Kirsch, about the performance and probably the overall form of Firmino at the moment. Are you concerned about him at all?
I think we all are as Liverpool fans. I don't know what it is, whether it's a case of that for the past 2 years he's not been pushed enough. There's nobody really in that team that can really challenge him for that
exactly.
place every week. So
that was my sort of observation as well. When you bring someone like Jota in and he's really hit the ground running and he's made an impact when he's come on as a sub, you've got someone waiting in the wings that can provide serious competition to your front three.
Yeah.
And as soon as I think, to be fair, it's a combination of both, because they showed the statistics before the game about Firmino and how he's never been a 25 goal a seasoner like Salah and Mane do for you. But what he does do is he initiates that press, and he's really good at winning the ball back. And he's done it, but his numbers are down for it. Like, he's not winning the ball back nearly as much as he has in the past, and he's actually winning it back less than the other two, who are also scoring more than him. So it's like, if he's not doing what he's in the team to do as well as he can do and needs to be done for the side, you know, do you have to bring someone in to... I'm not saying you drop him from the team entirely, but is it sort of a case of taking him out the firing line for a bit and letting Jota sort of, you know, see what he can do?
For me, I think it kind of echoes back to the question you asked before about the 4-2-3. Well, I put it down as 4-2-3-1, but it could be 4-2-2.
Sort of, yeah, it sort of depends on your interpretation of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think if it wasn't Man City at the weekend, I don't think Firmino would have started. I think we may have had a similar lineup to the Atalanta game, or if we had maybe a fit Thiago or Fabinho, we would have had another man in a three-man midfield.
Is he still injured, Thiago?
Yeah, I think it's from the Everton game.
From the Everton, where he took the challenge from Charleston. Yeah.
Because I wrote down that it was crying out for a bit of control, because the link, but especially from probably the 40th minute, second half on, that there was no link between attack and midfield. It literally was all like long balls either down the wing or from the centre back for the front three to run onto, or front four at some points to run onto.
Yeah.
It was fruitless, really. There's only maybe one that came off. It wasn't even properly coming off. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, sometimes you just want someone to get their foot on the ball and play a few passes, I think, especially against a side like Man City, where, you know, even if they're not at their best, they will look to control possession. And when you get the ball, you ideally want to keep it for as long as possible. I appreciate going direct. I think it was part of your game plan, to be honest. I don't think you're afraid to do it with the forward you've got. Like, it makes a lot of sense, really. But I agree, as the game went on, it was sort of like, I think both teams were happy with a draw. They were less prepared to lose the game than they were like to try and go and win it and risk losing it, if that makes sense. Like, you don't.
I made the observation it was very similar to the Anfield game 2 seasons ago, where
the 0-0. Yeah. It just became cagey.
It was a very cagey game of chess.
Yeah. 100%. I thought.
Anyway, we should move on to the next game, the Arsenal v Aston Villa game.
Do we have to?
It's Aston Villa won 3-0.
Crikey.
Continuing their form against the traditional top 6 very well at the start of the season. Harry, what were your thoughts on the game?
How long you got? I think you can't talk about the game, for all our deficiencies and all the stuff I could pull apart, without recognising and acknowledging Aston Villa were really good on the day. They played really well. They've got some really good players in areas where we don't, like especially in the midfield sort of creative areas. I think they have 3 or 4 players that would get into our team in those areas. And for all the good recruitment they've done, I think Ollie Watkins has proven to be a really shrewd bit of business. I think Barkley from Chelsea also has. You got to remember this.
You to say 12 months ago he'd have a performance like that against Arsenal, you would have been laughing. But
I know it was chalk and cheese really with what we saw from our forwards. But what I was going to add is they only missed relegation by 1 point last season, and a lot of them wanted the manager to be sacked. So
people drew that back to the Bournemouth, Sheffield United game where they thought.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's fine margins. Like, they very just as easily could have gone down. And while I think they played really well on the day and they've got a lot of quality, if you're Arsenal, you have to look at a result like that and be very, very concerned. I think the defending on the day was poor. I'm not going to go too deep on it because I think the defending actually, since Arteta's come in, has improved a lot. Maybe it's because of the way we play, but I can put the defending on the day against Villa down to just having an off day. What I can't put down to that is that our forward play and the way we're looking to attack teams, because it's a consistent pattern. Like, we are really struggling against anyone that will sit deep and break in numbers. Like, we just don't have the craft, the movement, the fluidity. it's almost like playing with the handbrake on, watching us against some of these teams. And I mean, I follow a couple of journalists on Twitter that were at the game, and they've basically described the way Arteta was on the touchline as he was essentially instructing the players where to pass the ball and where to move to. And while you want structure like that, you sort of got to look at it and think that's micromanagement to a really, really extreme extent. And is that inhibiting the way we're able to attack teams like Aston Villa and sort of the teams around, like we played Leicester a couple of weeks ago, similar, couldn't break them down and they end up winning the game? Is he inhibiting the way the team sort of go about it? You know, that's the question I would ask.
I do think, yeah, it's Arteta's a difficult one because he's clearly he's clearly a smart man about football. Before he went to Pep, Pochettino wanted him as assistant. Pep could speak highly enough of him. Arsenal. Did you buy him out of Man City?
I think that's essentially the way it went. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's clearly a lot of hype and a lot of expectation about this man, and he has changed you from the shambles that was Emery. But I do think he has a bit of pep about him in the way that he
does. Do you remember there was a couple of years ago? It was a few years ago. I think it was 2015. They had Thierry Henry on Monday Night Football, and they had him talking about when he played with Pep Guardiola at Barcelona. And they said, how was he as a manager? And he said his attention to detail and his insistence on like structure and the way that you play the game was you couldn't speak highly enough of it. His attention to detail in terms of that sort of stuff was really, really spot on. But the difference between that and what I'm seeing at Arsenal is what Henry said is up to the sort of final third of the pitch, you had to be really structured in terms of the way you set up and the way you went about your role. But then once you got into that final third, and I see Liverpool do it, I see Man City do it, you can be fluid. Your forwards are buzzing around everywhere. They can make runs off each other. They don't have to just stick in sort of quadrants of the pitch. And you could move around, you're going to create chances, and you sort of play off each other. You play to the strengths of each other rather than playing to a necessary like sort of philosophy of the manager where he's telling you, right, you've got to go there, you've got to go there, you've got to go there. It's sort of, right, how can we hurt teams with the quality we've got up front? And what I see with Arsenal at the moment when we're attacking teams is you get this sort of, it's the 5-5, I think it's described as in football now, where you have 5 defensive-minded players and 5 attacking-minded players sort of on the pitch. And you basically look to get 1 wide left, 1 wide right, and then sort of 2 inside and 1 striker. But the problem is with ours, they all stay in those areas of the pitch. Like none of them overlap, none of them cross paths, and it's just we end up attacking in straight lines with no movement, no one carrying the ball, and it's very difficult to create against teams that know the way we play by now.
It can become a bit predictable, yeah.
No, it does, and the problem is, Bob, as I've said this, I don't know if I said it on the last podcast. I think a lot of our width comes from the fullbacks, who, especially Tierney, can put a really good cross into the box. But we don't have players that are going to score headers. I mean, our best chance of the game, the ball gets whipped in from Tierney. Lacazette's about 8 yards out, and his technique's just all wrong for the header. So I'm worried at the moment. I think to close on the Arsenal game, I think with Arteta, he's done a very good job in terms of making us more solid. We're much better in those bigger games. We're much more competitive, and we have a blueprint to win them. And what he'll look at and say is, I've built this defensive foundation and structure. I do not want to forego that in place of trying to play more attacking, free-flowing football. He doesn't want to lose all the progress and all the stuff he's done up to this point. However, we can't keep playing the way we are, because if you play the way we are, which is try and limit chances the opposition have, but then you're not going to have many yourself, you're basically saying to yourself, you can't make mistakes at your end. So you can't make errors leading to goals, which we have players prone to doing. And you've got to take pretty much every single one of the few chances that come your way in the game. And at the moment, Aubameyang's not getting in the positions to take them, and Lacazette doesn't take them. So unfortunately, the ceiling on the way we're playing at the moment is we're looking to basically nick games, like we did the one against Man United. But it's not going to work every week, and you have to have a different approach against sides like Villa.
On that idea, we will be... through the international break, instead of talking about international football, we are going to do a breakdown of each club, so what signings we make, stuff like that. And the first one we will be doing is Arsenal, that will come out next week. So look forward to that. On that note, Bolton lost again. It was 3-2 to Crewe, who are in League One, in the FA Cup first round. And we're a club in shambles. I've got some stats for you here. So
Yeah, go for it.
Since our last season of the Championship, so this is last year in League One and the start of the season, we've won 8 of our 55 games. 6 last year out of 40 and 2 we've won 8 of our last in 55. 6 last season and 2 this season so far.
Doesn't make pretty reading.
Yes,
no, it does not.
I think since we got relegated from the Championship we got promoted from League One, we've won 17 and 103, I think. With a spray of managers that have no real ethos, we've had issues off the pitch, which has been well documented.
Mm-hmm.
We got lucky when we had a buyout, although even that, we've still got financial issues apparently with them not really wanting to put their own money in because they bought the club out, so they feel like they have the right to not have to put any more money in. We've got really good players like Ali Crawford. He is currently the top creator in League Two so far this season, with the most key passes, and he's clearly every game our expected assists and sometimes our expected goals is all coming through him. But then we've got fans off the pitch saying he's not good enough. We are.
So, go on. Sorry, just to ask you, Bob, for you at the moment, what's the biggest problem in terms of the way you're setting up, the way the games are sort of going? Is it that you're letting too many in? Is it that you're not taking the chances coming your way? What's the biggest problem at the moment?
We're scoring goals. We're fine. We scored 2 against Crewe, who are in the league above us, which demonstrates we're finishing goals, we're scoring goals. We've got a bit of an injury crisis. Our centre-back stroke left mid has just been injured till the new year. Dennis Politic, again, was our best player last year. He's out. Owen Doyle's out. I think the only real player we've got playing right now is Sarcevic. But then we're making tackles. Then you look at the way the keeper's his saving record. He's letting, for every shot on goal we have, he's letting another one in. So, I mean, if you think on average you have 6 shots on target in a game, that's 3 goals just there. And
sounds like the Bolton Kappa to me.
Mate, I'd take Kepa right now. If Chelsea want to loan him over and pay his wages, I'd happily take him.
Must be desperate.
This is the first time we've been knocked out of the Carabao Cup and FA Cup in the first round in the past 2 years in our history. So I think, first of all, I don't think the manager's the problem because it's clearly before him. It's a bigger problem. I think we've jumped from squad to squad, from transfer embargo to ban to not having enough money to sign players to going into seasons with 15, 16, 17 players or playing youngsters. I don't think we've got the basis to build on. I don't think we've got the squad that turned up. Like, for example, I think of Rashford, for example, at Man United. He's been there since the last 4 or 5 years starting. He understands what it's like to be a Bolton player, and he knows the day in and day out. So when a new player comes in, they can talk to Rashford, they get around him. It's a better community. Players can build from that. But then we don't have that. We don't have that player that's been there constantly. And unless, I don't know how you build that in the short term. I don't think you can. But I think it's just going to be a bit of patience from the Bolton fans.
Do you not think, though? I mean, that all makes a lot of sense, and it certainly will contribute towards poor performances and ultimately poor results. But do you not think, given what you probably expected before the season started, and probably a lot of people with their eyes on League Two expected before the start of the season, do you not think that you'd expect slightly better at this point? I mean, you're 19th in the table, and a lot of people predicted you to go up through automatic promotion, if not the playoffs.
I think I was definitely too optimistic. I didn't think it's a bit like Chelsea at the start.
But not just you. No, I'm not saying it's just you that's guilty of that.
And I think everyone's a bit too optimistic. They thought this manager with a lot of hype from Barrow. We signed a lot of players. Again, I didn't agree with all their signings, but they've been useful. Sarcevic looks like a great buy in midfield. He's our second top scorer from midfield. He's popped up some really important goals, and he just seems like a bloke around the dressing room that knows, he'll tell players it's been shit, even though. But yeah, no, I just think it's like Chelsea on a worse level. We've had 14 people. We only had 6 or 7 players carry over from last year. So just got to be patient. Bit of gel. We're tackling well. We're 5th in tackles for the league. We're tackling well's a weird
In
phrase.
the playoffs for something, then.
Do you feel you're feeling a bit of the kind of COVID hangover that you're really struggling playing behind closed doors? I know obviously it's the same for everyone, but do you feel you're feeling
maybe
it more than others, for example? I don't know.
No, because we were terrible when I've watched us with our own eyes be terrible. Maybe it would help at home games, but then the issue is we've got such a big stadium, we don't fill it. We can't really generate any atmosphere. Yeah. So I don't know. I think COVID is definitely a factor of. Again, we haven't got the money to get. I say not get the right players in. Owen Doyle was really good last year, but then he's injured.
Sounds like the manager's lucky there's no fans in the stadium at the moment.
God, yeah, he gets so much abuse. The issue is I stand up and be like, calm down, give the guy a break. But,
I think with social media, it's like never ever going to be reflective of the entire fan base and what you encounter actually at the ground. Certainly, I've experienced that when I go to the matches. Like, obviously, there's going to be discontent when you're playing poorly, but like it's nowhere near as good or bad as it will ever seem on social media. And I think you are just going to get people that essentially they want the manager to fail to be proven right on the opinion that, they thought, okay, he wasn't good enough in the first place or after one game. Do you know what I mean? Like, you see that in football quite a lot with people. They're so insistent they're right about stuff that they actually just get to the point where, I'm not saying they take pleasure in the team losing, but it's sort of like, oh, well, at least I was proven right that he's not good enough, and sort of the energy you can channel towards it. But
moving on.
Yeah, not good times for them.
Who are your standout performers of the weekend? I'll go first. And mine was actually in the Arsenal Villa game. It was Matty Cash. He was signed from Nottingham Forest at the start of the season. And he's been really good this year. He's making 3.3 tackles and 3 interceptions per 90, which, if you think of it, that's basically Kante numbers at Leicester if he does it over a year. I mean, it's very rare that he will. And in that game, he made 3 tackles, won 3 aerial duels. And when you talk about you created from those wide areas against Man United,
especially down the left. I mean, we overload the left. So if he's playing right back,
he had a great game.
I thought he was. I didn't watch him particularly closely, but he must have had it. Anyone that comes to the Emirates, I mean, as much as we might not be at our best, if you come and keep a clean sheet, you've had a good game for Aston Villa.
Yeah. And have you got any stand-up performance for the weekend?
No, I'll let you go first, Cash.
Sorry to twist the knife. I am really impressed with Ollie Watkins. He had a great game against us, unfortunately, in the 7-2.
I do forget, you took a battering off him as well. So you know what I'm feeling right now.
At least you're not alone, Harry.
No, but you'd have seen it, though. When they get those players in attacking areas, like they've got quality.
Watkins is that.
Yeah, I think there's this isn't me trying to get excuses. I think there was a lot of fortune about something, but obviously, when
Oh yeah, against you. I mean, they had a couple of goals.
Once the goalkeeper's done that for the first goal, you're not really good out.
No, it just set the game up to just be an absolute horror show, which it was. But
I don't think anybody would have expected, going back to Watkins, how good of a start he was going to have. If I'm being honest, and made up for that. To be fair, you proper make a name for yourself. You never know. Use Villa as a stepping stone. Apologies, any Villa fans, but
I'd take him next. He's an Arsenal fan. We should go in for him tomorrow. I mean, watching the performance of him compared to Lacazette, just the movement, the aggression to run in behind and want to get on the end of stuff, the intent. It was just like, honestly, if you didn't know he played for Villa and you didn't know Lacazette played for Arsenal, you'd have had him on opposite teams there because. And if you compare the performance of someone like Willian to those like Barkley and not to even mention Grealish, I mean, like they've got players that, quite frankly, I think should be playing for us, and we've got players that should be playing for them. But Watkins is really good.
I watched Watkins a lot last year at Brentford, and
you do.
A lot was made about his pace and how he can break through the defence. I think about that goal he scored against Swansea in the playoff semi-final. But he's so good with his head. Most of his goal came in the 6-yard box with his header. Like, he gets in such good areas.
He got on the end of one, yes. I mean, it was one of those. It was pretty much on the goal line, but he gets there and puts it in. You talk about his pace. The second goal they scored, he just makes a really good diagonal run and just peels off the back of the defenders. Your lad, Rob Holding, had a terrible game
know.
yesterday, Rob. You can have him back.
How old is Ollie Watkins?
He's 24. He's 24.
Oh,
Yes,
So
I mean, there's
he's
the scope for improvement, isn't there, already? And he looks like he's going to get goals in the Premier League. I mean, it seems too obvious, but someone's just got to raid Villa. They've got some really tidy players in some of their areas there, 100%.
I'd be surprised if somebody didn't.
Yeah, I would. I'd take Watkins tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, the issue is what you're spending for him if they spend 30 mil and he's got like this.
Yeah, you'd be looking upwards of that, wouldn't you? Because, I mean, at the moment, they wouldn't be looking to sell him, I'll tell you that much. Just looks like you missed the boat. I mean, look, it's always difficult. If we'd signed Watkins from Brentford and said, yeah, he's going to go in and be starting every game, you're obviously not going to be necessarily on board with it at the time. But it wouldn't, there's kind of no loss to a signing like that. If you spend 20 odd million on someone that has that high ceiling, at the very worst, you could probably make your money back just because of his age,
I often think if you're a football club, you should sign 4 20 mil strikers. One of them will become 80 mil, one of them will become 30 mil, and the other two will become like 5 mil. But as a whole,
you're not going to get it right every time.
Yeah. Ollie Watkins is good.
No, he's really good. He's really good. I was really impressed with him.
Any outstanding performances for you?
Any outstanding ones? I was very impressed with Ziyech for Chelsea against Sheffield United. I think he he didn't score, but he just kind of ran the game from the right-hand side. And I kind of look at Chelsea at the moment, and it's all starting to come together for them a little bit. And look, I mean, they spent a lot of money in this summer. So quite frankly, if it wasn't, I think Lampard's job would, be on the line, quite frankly, and it is on the line. But someone like him and some of the other guys they've got in attack, with like Pulisic, I think Havertz will eventually come good. They've got quality where we haven't, and I thought he had a very good game on that right hand side. Just quality on the ball, really. Like every time it went to him, he was peeling off into areas to make himself available. He was asking questions, whether it be running at defenders or putting good balls into the box. I think he was really, really impressive, and I've been impressed with how quickly he's sort of slotted in. Actually, considering he was out at the start of the season injured, I think he was really good for them on the weekend and a catalyst for quite a good performance.
He's pushing Kane for top assist as well, which is
yeah. He's been good. I'm impressed with him.
Sure. So we can go on to players to watch for next weekend. We're obviously talking about the 21st of November here, so after the international break.
Yeah.
Yes. So I wanted the fixtures to get any.
Go for it.
Newcastle v Chelsea, Aston Villa v Brighton, Burnley v Crystal Palace, Fulham v Everton, Liverpool Leicester, Man United West Brom, Wolves v Southampton, Spurs Man City be the big game on Saturday evening, Sheffield United West Ham, and then Leeds v Arsenal. So
Arsenal Sunday, Battle of the Mid-Table Titans. Go on, I'll let you kick this off, Rob. Anyone to watch?
So this is also joining into my team to watch for the next weekend, and it's Sergei Reguilon at Spurs. He had a great year at Sevilla last year, and the issue with Real Madrid was they already had enough left backs sorted anyway, but he's still demonstrating to be a really good sign for 20 mil. They got a 40 mil buyback, I think, so still a bit smarter business, but still he's currently doing 1.8 key passes into the for a fullback, which is elite. If you think of it this way, Chilwell was only doing 1 last year for Leicester. He's got 2 assists already, 2.8 tackles and interceptions, which is fine, especially if you're going to play that attacking wing-back role if you're Reguilon. And I think if Spurs are going to do it under Mourinho, because I think Mourinho has a shorter span than people think. They often think, because it's Tottenham and they're a bit lower down when he joined, they think, he'll have a bit more time. But I still think he's
3-year manager, isn't he? Let's be honest. We know the cycle of Mourinho by now. We've seen it for 20 years.
This has got to be their year. They're second right now behind Leicester. And
have you seen their fixtures though coming up? I mean, it really is just like make or break for them in the next 5 games. I mean, it's a horror run.
And that was my prediction of that game against Man City. If they win that, all of a sudden the conversation changes around Spurs from can they, can't they, to they're in this. So
yeah, it's one of those as well. Like when you have a hard run of games and you lose the first one, then it puts that added pressure on the next one and then the one after that. And you're right, if they beat Man City, it sets them up nicely because then they got Chelsea after that and then they've got us. And if they lose to Man City, it just puts a whole different spin on it, and it suddenly looks a much harder run. I think they've got to go to Anfield a couple of games after, so it's going to be really tricky for them if they can hold their position. I mean, God forbid they do. I mean, I can't imagine them winning a title before us. It'd be unbearable. But they look closer to it. I think the difference between us and Spurs at the moment is they've just got quality in attacking areas with the likes of Kane. I mean, Kane's playing as good as I've ever seen him in his career, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, some of the passes he's laying on for people are just even on Sunday against West Brom. I mean, he didn't end up getting any assists. He gets the winner, but like some of the passes he put through earlier on in the game, his range of passing is fantastic. I mean, you never would associate that with him before, but he's been really good.
Harry, who's your player to watch for the next weekend?
I'm interested to see how Villa do against Brighton. So I think it's got to be one of their players, whether it's Grealish or Watkins. I think that it's one of those games. They got Brighton at home. Brighton need a win. Brighton is they're playing well, but they're not getting the result. So I think they'll come wanting to win that. And I'm interested to see how Villa can do in a game like that, because so far this season, you look at it on paper, and they've kind of won all their hardest games. They've beat Leicester away. They obviously beat Liverpool at home, and then they've come to the Emirates and done away with us very easily. So I'll be interested to see how. I mean, I'll go with Watkins or Grealish, to be honest. How their attacking players fare against the Brighton team that, well, they need to start winning games, quite frankly, because performances are only going to get you so far if the results aren't coming.
Kirsch, you got any players or teams to watch for the next weekend?
I'm interested in the Chelsea game, for being honest. Chelsea-Newcastle game. I was wanting to see when or if Timo Werner is going to, start showing. I'm not saying he hasn't already. Don't get me wrong. And obviously, as a Liverpool fan, that might sound a little bit
sour grapes.
Sour grapes.
Jota's been better. Jota has been better. You can't argue it.
But I think maybe a team like Newcastle with the centre backs that they have, maybe using his pace against them might be one of those weekends where we go, right, that's what that's why he's commanded such a fee. I love Werner. I remember on Football Manager a few years ago. When he was at Stuttgart, I signed him all the time.
Wasn't he a left winger?
He has played there before.
I want to say he was both wing out and attack at the time. But I think he's been a bit of a slow burner, and I just think it's just it's only a matter of time. It could be wrong with speaking about this weekend, but I think
was it a slow burner?
Oh,
that's so one pun in there, didn't you, Bob?
But yeah, no, I think he will come good. I mean, he was so good last year. Admittedly in an argument team, but yeah, he'll come good.
I'm just watching. I mean, I haven't watched him probably as much as you guys. Having seen him in the Premier League, I think he struggled with not having space to run into in certain games, and he's been shunted out on the left wing and kind of been said to, right, go on, beat a man and go past him. And he kind of just tries to knock it past him and use his pace a little bit. And I think the Newcastle game is one of those, like, they could just sit really deep, be really turgid and be really hard to break down. And in those sorts of games, I don't think he's quite as adept to playing in that way. But only time's going to tell. If the chances start falling to him and he starts putting them away, I mean, you can't argue with it, right? That's what he's in the team to do.
Because it's at St James's, where obviously even though they don't have the crowd.
That's the thing, isn't it? You're going to say that you'd expect them to play more attacking, but without the fans, it's kind of. Without the fans, you can play in a way that you might not play in front of your home supporters, where you'll concede possession and you'll look to hit them on the break. I mean, Newcastle do that anyway. Look at the game they played against them last season. They pretty much just let Chelsea have it all game, said, go on then, break us down, and they couldn't. And without fans in the ground, I think there's even more inclination to do that, because you haven't got the supporters urging you 20 yards up the pitch.
Yeah,
not true.
So moving on to Fantasy Premier League, how was everyone's weekend? So I've got 59 points. Got saved by Rui Patricio saving that penalty. He got me 10 points, which was an absolute. Gave my team the boost it needed. I don't know why I captained Zuma. I had images of him scoring
a flying header again.
Yeah, and getting a clean sheet, and I thought, but no, I should have kept his Chilwell.
Didn't get either, did they?
But, 59 points. I think I've had a good week, and it says I'm going down in the Globe, which is weird.
To be honest, funny you say that, right? So I ended up with 71, and it was the team that Arsenal play against, Aston Villa, who I had 3 players from, Martinez, Grealish, and Watkins. You sort of turned my weekend from quite an average one into sort of a semi-good one. A lot of the guys in my league had more than me though, Bob, which is what I was going to say. So I had 71 points, and I sort of barely held my position in the table. So I did all right. I did okay, but it feels kind of wrong in a way when you're putting players in that are playing against your own team. I was putting them in for the games after Arsenal, but I did say last weekend they could easily just run riot against us, and they did, to be fair.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Kirsch, how was your weekend?
I do appear to be in a kind of level where I'm keep getting similar points every week. So I got 57 this week. Again, Patricio doing well for me. Mane, I've got Mane captain. But for me, like going back to Liverpool, he's my favourite out of the front three. I always have him in my fantasy team because I just think there's a little bit of what's the word? Unpredictability with him. So you can get, but Barnes and Saka have let me down. I've got 1 point between two.
I was disappointed with Barnes because I put Barnes in thinking, basically what happens in these leagues is that you have a lot of the same players as the guys you're competing against. I was like, right, I've got like just under 7 mil to spend. Who do I throw in? And I thought I'll put Barnes in, and he literally comes off the bench with about 10 minutes to go. And I'm thinking, oh, for goodness sake, like, what is going on here? And it ended up being a really poor shout, and Saka scored an own goal. So, I mean, this is not great. I always go with Salah instead of Mane just because he takes penalties, and he's been reliable from the spot, and you've had a few this season. So, there's not a lot between them. I think they'll end up with similar goals over the course of 38 games. But at the moment, I thought I'll get Salah in. And he's been really good.
Say again, sorry.
Sorry, you said how many points you ended up, didn't you? 57.
57.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we're all above the average, which is 55.
55, yeah. Someone got 130. I mean, I do wonder some of these people that just they make a name for themselves like every week, don't they? They just have ridiculous. I mean, I saw someone that had triple captained Che Adams. I mean, who does that?
I saw that. That was insane. I was like, what?
Triple captain Che Adams, and then and then a couple of weeks ago, someone had an entire they had a back five and goalkeeper consisting of Chelsea and Man United players, and they're playing each other. And obviously, it was a 0-0 draw. But it's like, why would you do that? Do you not when you're thinking about a football match, whether it's like fantasy football or you're betting on a result? I find it very difficult to sort of want a draw to happen. You kind of want something to happen in the game, especially not a 0-0 draw. I could never go right. I fancy a 0-0 draw here to help my fantasy, or help my betting slip out, and then sit there and literally watch it be a 0-0. I find that really hard to do. You kind of want something to happen, and I didn't understand that from them. But these people make a name for themselves every week, just picking these ridiculous
Just looking
teams.
at this guy's team, look at the guy who got the 1-3-3. He's played bench boost, and he's got like 9.
2 Burnley players, 3 Burnley players,
3 Burnley players on the bench. All getting 9, 8, and 6 between that, each respectively there, and then 2 for Rodriguez. So he's got what's that?
He's just pulled it out of his arse, hasn't he?
Yeah, literally.
But that's the thing. Like, you're gonna over the course of the season, you're not gonna do very well if you do something like that on one particular week. Because I mean, if you look at his team and the fixtures coming up, it doesn't make much sense to me.
I don't think he cares anymore.
No, they don't. They try and make a name for themselves, don't they? Over 1 week.
You get you get an award as well, like a mug and something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he made 15 transfers, so he actually lost 56 points.
There you go. So you're not playing it properly, are you? You're just trying to make a name for yourself as the one that does the best on each given week. Fair play to him.
Anyway, away from the game,
we're not going to do our quick fire predictions. I mean, how did we do last week?
Good question. This is.
How did we do last week? 'Cause I actually don't remember what we ended up predicting.
It was 5. It was 5 all between us.
So what we might have to do, Rob, instead of like a cumulative tallies, we might have to take like an average and then get all of our guests to do predictions as well.
That's what I'm saying.
And see who comes out on top. Yeah, because we'll get Kirsch to give some this week, and then anyone we get on
Harry, because we got the same amount of points, so we can just start from 0 again.
Funny that.
The best part was I was listening back to it. It was like Brighton v Burnley. and we were like, why the hell is that on box office? And it ends up
And it
being
was a
0-0.
turgid, drab, dull 0-0. So predictable. Burnley have had 2 games in box office and they've both been crap. Who would have thought?
Yeah, so you got the Brighton Burnley game right. We both got the Southampton game right. We both got the Everton Man United game wrong.
Did I say draw in the end?
You said Everton win, I think.
No, I didn't, because I said Ollie would pull it out of the bag, but I couldn't remember if I said draw or United win. I think I went draw. Because as I said, he always pulls it out of the bag, doesn't he?
Crystal Palace v Leeds. I think you said draw and I said Leeds win. We both got it wrong.
Both wrong.
Both got Chelsea right. I think you went West Ham and I went Fulham, and I got it wrong, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, no, or did we both go Fulham?
I think we both went Fulham.
Yeah. Both got the Tottenham right. I got the Leicester one right, and you got it wrong because you went for Wolves. You got the Man City Liverpool one right, and I got.
And then you got Arsenal. So, you said we'd lose.
So it's 5-5. So
okay.
next weekend, Newcastle.
Yeah, let's go through this.
Newcastle v Chelsea. I'm gonna go easy Chelsea win.
I don't think they'll easily win. I think they'll shade it by a goal. Would be my prediction. What do you think, Kirsch?
Go ahead.
I think they hang on for about 70 minutes, something like that, and then once the levy breaks, it's a couple of goals going, so maybe a 2-3.
Sort of what I see, tight game, and then it might open up at the end. Sort of like the United game where they played them actually, Newcastle. It was tight to about the 85th minute, and then all that sort of defensive work, the floodgates just open.
Tiredness comes in as well.
Yeah, 100%.
It was like that Chelsea v Sheffield United. It was like this
it's difficult, isn't it, when you haven't got the fans sort of urging you over the line when your body's just like absolutely shot to pieces. I think they are struggling at the moment with fitness, actually, the players, because they didn't have a pre-season.
Everett said that. He said it was 42 soft muscle tissue injuries, but up 42% in the.
It's funny you said of injuries. Have you seen about Trent Kirsch? He's out for 4 weeks.
Is it 4 weeks? Is it?
It's 4 weeks. Yeah, it's a month, they reckon. So who do you? Before we go on with the predictions, who do you think's the obvious candidate to step in? Do you think it'll be Milner?
It's going to be a toss-up between Milner and Nico Williams. It all depends on the team, I think.
Yeah, it depends on the opposition, doesn't it? I think if you're playing someone a bit better, I don't think the kid's ready, because I sort of, you've got away with it playing him a few times, but then like when you played us in the Community Shield, so when he comes up against someone like a Aubameyang or like a good inside forward or winger, it's a bit more difficult for him, I think.
Yeah. I think against Leicester, for me, it's a shoe-in for James Milner.
Yeah, so, that's a Milner game. Another late penalty.
Yeah.
So, Villa v Brighton. I'm gonna go for a Brighton win.
I think I agree. That's why I'm intrigued to see how Villa do, because it'd just be so. I mean, they were 4-0 down at home to Southampton. I know they got it back to 4-3, but they're just a bonkers side, and you kind of don't know what you're getting from them. I think Brighton need to win, quite frankly, more than Villa do, and I think they'll catch them cold after the international break.
Maybe, yeah. Kirsch?
Obviously, form says Villa done it. I'm going to go score draw.
Draw, okay. Burnley v Crystal Palace. Now, Burnley have got to win.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Literally. So
have they won a game yet?
I don't think so.
They've had a couple of 0-0s.
No, they're only on 2 points.
Yeah, they drew 0-0 to West Brom and Brighton.
But yeah, no. I'm going to go Burnley because they have to win, basically.
Palace are another team. They're sort of like Villa to a lesser extent. You just don't know what you're getting from them this season. They're either really good or they're crap. Yeah, I'll probably go Burnley win as well. I don't want to have the same predictions, Bob. We need to open up a gap between us one way or another.
They weren't even that much the same last week.
They weren't. Just sort of end up the same in a different way.
Kirsch?
I'm trying. I'll go draw again. Just like because Palace buoyed on the back of a good result against Leeds. Burnley have to play for it, and they're just basically going head to head and end up being a draw.
Fulham v Everton. I'm going to go for Everton. Richarlison back, I think, will be big.
You don't say.
Yeah, Fulham are very poor defensively. Everton have lost 3 in a row. I think you got to go with Everton.
Fulham are so bad. I'm gutted Brentford didn't beat them in that.
They're just really, really average. When we played them on the first of the season, we're not even that good, and I thought they played quite well, but they're just not a good side. Like they're really poor at the back, and they don't have quality up front. So it's just a really poor combo. And when you've got people chipping penalties in the 98th minute, it makes
I'm
a
not gonna lie,
disaster.
I rated that so much. Because I'm
I
not
bet his
Fulham fan.
teammates didn't rate it in the changing room afterwards.
But it's so ballsy.
Yeah, but you wouldn't rate it if one of your players done that and missed.
Oh, no,
I mean,
I'd
you'd be
hate it.
spitting blood.
But
Honestly, you'd be seething.
Fulham were
Imagine-
form for that, aren't they, as well? Those last minute penalty kind of things.
Yeah,
imagine if it came off.
I know. What do you think, Kush?
It's got to be Everton, personally.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Scouts are predicting Everton to win.
I'm not going to be that petty. I just can't.
No, it's fair enough. I predicted the Spurs win last week.
Liverpool v Leeds. No,
Liverpool
Liverpool
v
v Leicester.
Leeds.
Sorry, Liverpool v Leicester. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be closer than people think.
No, absolutely. Having watched Leicester against us, I have no doubt they're going to go to Anfield and set up exactly the same way in the 5-4-1, and eventually they'll look to sort of release Vardy, and he'll be their sort of main outlet. But they've gone to Man City and beat them 5-2. They've come to us and beaten us, and I think Liverpool will win. But I think it'll be sort of like last season's game, a bit tight, maybe a late goal.
Kirsch?
I think, hypothetically, if it's the other way around, if it's at Leicester, I think it's arguably a Leicester win or a draw. I do think the home comes into it. I think just obviously, as I said before, but we've got I don't know how many games it is without losing at Anfield. There is obviously a kind of a bit of pride when it comes to a bit more pride with playing at home to keep that record. I do think it is going to be close, probably a 2-1, something like that. It has,
Only a Leicester.
Three out of 4.
Yeah, we need to predict something different, Bob.
I think if because of the injuries and Leicester just looking so good, I think Leicester are going to win that like 2-3-0, and then
They're not going to win 3-0. I'll say that right now. I'll put my neck out there. They are not going to win 3-0.
They're going to win 3-0 and they're going to win the league.
Right, remember that, guys. Quote that from Bob. When Liverpool 3-0 up at half time.
Man United v West Bromwich Albion. Man United, and I think after that game, Man United have got 3 really easy fixtures next. They've got West Ham, Southampton, I think, is someone else.
Southampton's not easy.
No, but I mean like not big teams.
Southampton's away. That's the sort of game they don't win, is the problem. They'll beat West Brom. I think they'll beat West Brom because West Brom are a poor side. Even when they play well, like against Spurs, they just, again, they're like Fulham. They don't have the quality. Man United are quite simply, they're just adept to games like Everton where they can break on them and get numbers forward. I think they'll beat West Brom. But, it's perfect, really. If you're a rival fan, you just love... I mean, as a Liverpool fan, Kirsch, you must love seeing Ollie just staying in the job every week because they're going to get nowhere near you.
I get more of a buzz from United. Just on the precipice of sacking him, them winning a game. Even better when it's against Everton, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. I bet you would, for once, loving it from a United perspective. But you must look at it and think... You must think they're just going to get nowhere near you. Like, the gap is already that big. How on earth can he be the man to narrow it?
Definitely. It just...
Champions League?
No. They didn't even beat Istanbul Besiktas. So why are they going to win the Champions League?
Demba Ba's a great player.
Yeah, but he's a great player if you give him a half to run into. Like Liverpool did a few those years back.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, Man United win, I think.
And Kirsch?
I think it's a game that United rest on the laurels a little bit too long, but then put it to bed. But similar to, not that I think West Brom will score like Newcastle did, but similar to the Newcastle game when Newcastle, win it.
Yeah.
They'll leave it a bit later than expected, but still win.
It's a nice game to have, isn't it, when you need to get your first home win?
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly what you'd want.
Wolves v Southampton. Southampton for me.
Draw.
I think Wolves are cusping on a crisis.
Are they? They're not doing that badly, are they? They're in the top half.
No, but I mean,
they beat Leeds. Who did they play after that? They beat someone else in between. I can't remember. Oh, Crystal Palace. Not doing that badly. I mean, they were a bit unlucky against Leicester as well because that was never a penalty. The one that was given it was a terrible decision.
They've just spent so much money. That's the one thing I'd say.
I don't understand why he leaves Traore on the bench. I can't get my head around that.
Yeah. See, it's stuff like that just cracks open up.
It really makes sense for me.
Kirsch?
Okay, that one's another tight one personally. I'm just trying to weigh it up. I think Southampton are in better form, aren't they? Got on the road to Molineux.
No wings though.
Draw.
That's what I was thinking, Bob.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to go draw. I'm going to go with Harry.
Okay. Spurs v Manchester City. Draw for me.
I think City win. City need to start winning games, and I think Spurs as well. Look, this is going to sound like I'm being a salty Arsenal fan because they're above us in the league and they've got better players. But I do honestly think if you look at some of the performances, they've been a bit unlucky in the home games, but then they've got very good players at the top end of the pitch that kind of, when you have a tight game like a West Brom away or a Burnley away where they've kind of won them 1-0, they're bailing them out. And against a side like Man City, you're going to need more than that. You need a complete team performance. And I've not seen anything from them. They were good against United, but United were just abysmal and everything went wrong for them that day. I've not seen anything from them that would make me think they'll turn City over. They might, but based on what I've seen, I think City need to win it, and they're a better side. They're further ahead in their project, and I think it's must win for them, and I think they will.
Kirsch?
I'm going Spurs. Close, but Spurs.
You think that, or are you hoping it?
We've all gone different. No, keeper, that's perfect.
I just think it's
a Mourinho game, isn't it, where they can sit in and get them on the counter?
1-2-1 personally.
It is, but it will have to go. I mean, if you think about the game last season, they absolutely battered the Man City. I don't know how they didn't win it, and I don't think it will be exactly the same.
Was that the one? Was it 2-2? That one? Was that
no, well, that one obviously, but then obviously the one they won 2-0 as well, where City missed a penalty and they hit the woodwork a couple of times. It was just an absolute. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I don't know. Look, it'll be different without fans in the ground, obviously, but I just fancy City
a little bit to get those goals, and maybe with Jesus getting that goal against ourselves on yesterday. Maybe that gives a bit of
start something, yeah.
Obviously it could be wrong, but because of how they've started, well, I say started, because of how they've been struggling, I just think the way that Mourinho sets his teams out, that's why I'm going Spurs.
Oh, it's a Mourinho game in a nutshell, but we'll see.
Sheffield United v West Ham. I'm going to go for West Ham United, and I think West Ham are looking good.
Yep, I agree.
I think, again, it's another one where, like Brighton, like Burnley, like Fulham, success must win for Sheffield United. I mean, they've had some really hard games recently, you have to say. I mean, they've literally played us, Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool almost in a row. I think they've had one game in between. And that's a hard run of games. And they've been playing a bit better in them. I mean, they went to Anfield, and while Liverpool probably deserved to win it, they gave you a bit of a fright for a while, Kirsch. They were pretty good.
We didn't play well in the first half.
No, you didn't. I think that those sort of games, Carragher said it on the punditry yesterday, you sort of, it seems like the big games, you kind of rise to the occasion at the moment. In the smaller ones, it's kind of about just getting over the line. And Sheffield United, they kind of collapsed a little bit against Chelsea. I thought Ramsdale was extremely poor in goal. I think he's such a downgrade on Henderson, and don't underestimate the role that's playing in some of the results you're seeing from them. Those tight games where they were winning them 1-0 or 2-1 last season, they're going the other way at the moment.
Well, looking at the game, that obviously being selfish and looking at the Liverpool game at Sheffield United last year. Well, the turning point of the game is Henderson throwing it in the back of his net. You know what I mean? If that doesn't happen.
Oh, yeah, but then he did make a great save afterwards, to be fair. I mean,
No,
I can't...
Well, I was just saying, he was the main guy in that game, personally.
Yeah. I think Sheffield United get a point. I think a draw.
Cool. Last one, Leeds v Arsenal.
I agree, by the way, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Arsenal because I don't think it's changed from the 1-0 when you beat them last year. I don't think much has changed, to be honest.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I look at the last two games we've played. I don't think we're as good as when we beat United. I don't think we're that good as a side where we'll go to all these top teams and expect to win. But I also don't think we're as bad as the 3-0 loss at home to Villa. I think we're somewhere in the middle. And a game like this, we could easily win it. We could easily lose it. And I think either way, you're probably not going to learn a lot about us. It'll either be we win it in a tight game or we lose it because we can't create. I think a draw. I think a 2-2 draw. I do love a Desmond.
Have Leeds lost their last 2 games?
They have. This is the thing. So they're going in. Obviously, it's an international break, but they'll need to come back and sort of, try and get back on track, really. And obviously, we've been thumped by Villa, so that you'd expect a reaction from both sides. I'll be interested to see if he changes the system, Arteta, because if he goes with the same sort of lineup and we get beat again, then I'm not saying Arteta out, but he's gonna have to have a real rethink for me.
Kirsch?
I think similar to what Harry was saying about the Sheffield United, that I think Leeds let their performance drop against smaller teams, but then bring it like the first game of the season also against us, for example.
Yeah.
I think people were expecting very good, Bielsa ball, but maybe not to that extent. And again, with the City game, I think they come up toe to toe, and ends up being 1-1, 2-2. Desmond, as you said.
I agree with that. I think it will. I think there'll be goals because of the way they play and the way we'll look to sort of hit them on the break. I think you'll see goals, and I think Desmond's a fair reflection.
There'll be goals. Anyway, away from the game.
Best segment of the show.
People love it. Away from the game, pet parrot saves man from house fire in Australia. Eric the parrot alerted his owner to a fire in Brisbane, even before the smoke detector did. So this bloke's parrot at 2 a.m. in the morning has woken his owner up and saved his life from a fire because his smoke detector wasn't working. Because he smelt smoke.
What do you reckon the parrot's like an Aussie? What do you think?
What do you mean it talks like an Aussie?
G'day, mate. There's a fire downstairs. What do you reckon?
Oh, no, mate. We're going to burn.
Burn to a crisp, mate.
Terrible Aussie accents.
Yeah, that wasn't great, was it?
The owner says, I heard a bang and Eric, my parrot, he started to yell and woke up and smelt a bit of smoke. He started to yell. Oh no, there's a fucking fire!
They started yelling Anton. Apparently, I'm not going to do the Aussie accent again. At risk of people just clipping that up and sending it to me.
He grabbed Eric, opened the door, looked back in the house. There's some flames. Wow.
What a parrot! That's Christ.
What a parrot!
Yeah.
I can tell you, we've got 4 cats in my house, and that's not fucking happening with cats.
No. My dog would fucking leg it, mate. Leave us all to die.
On a different note, politician stuffed £4,500 into his underpants he was wearing during a raid by anti-corruption police. My question is, your house is getting raided. And you can only save one item, but it's got to stay in your underwear for 24 hours. What would it be?
Well, I haven't got a bloody clue, to be honest. I'm not surprised to hear politicians doing anything for money, though. It doesn't surprise me one bit.
No, it doesn't.
Especially in Brazil.
Yeah.
In Brazil.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Getting his dirty fingers all over it.
What is he? He's the deputy leader of the Senate. Not surprised.
I don't think I'm sentimental enough about anything to think to myself as I'm getting raided, right, I'm going to just shove this down there for 24 hours just so I don't lose it. There's nothing of that much value to me I can think of.
Maybe my phone, but then...
Yeah, but like, I'm not that desperate. Do you know what I mean? It would have to be something that is like unique. With a phone, you can always get another one, I suppose, Like, I think it has to be something with sentimental value to you. Something
not to
unique.
sound like a child, but I've had a teddy bear since I was born, so it'd probably have to be that.
There you go. Don't have a problem with that, mate. There's nothing wrong with that.
But Jesus Christ, £4,500. That's a lot of money to put down there. I just realised. It's not going to be a cheque, is it?
No,
it's not. Just a load of 10s and 20s.
And it was in 10,000. It was 10,000 money's worth of notes as well.
Oh, was it?
Yes, that's a lot. That's a lot of paper.
That's a lot of paper.
Going down to booking and the smell coming off that when you're booking it into evidence.
The police report an officer noticed a large rectangular bulge in the senator's short as he walked off.
Oh, he didn't quite think about that one, did he?
Have you got £4,500 in your pocket? You're just pleased to see
What's he got that lying around for? That's what I want to know. Just like on his desk, you think, shit, I'm getting raided. Oh, fuck, let's grab that. Yep, thank you.
What else was down there is my question. What didn't they get?
Yeah. Peculiar, very peculiar. I'm not surprised to hear about politicians, though. Not at all.
Yeah. They don't mind. Anyway, thanks for being our first guest, Kirsch. It's been an honour to have you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate.
It's been a pleasure, yeah.
Welcome back for
Thank
the
you.
big Liverpool game, mate. We'll love to have you again.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you all next time.